Unit 4, Westward Expansion, beginning with the third president, Thomas Jefferson. The main ideas we'll discuss are the election of Thomas Jefferson, an important court case decision in Marbury versus Madison, the Louisiana Purchase and exploration, and then also where the neutrality of the United States was possibly compromised due to some decisions that Jefferson had made. The first two presidents of the United States were considered largely Federalist. Even though George Washington did not agree with political parties, he was a strong enforcer of the Constitution and a strong central government. His successor, John Adams, was also a Federalist and favored the strong central government, and Jefferson ran up against him for election and was a Republican who was very different point of view from the Federalist Party, as we had discussed in our last set of notes in Unit 3. This was an interesting situation where Jefferson and his competitor, Aaron Burr, were in a deadlock tie. And these two were in the same political party. Today, we have one candidate from each of the main political parties that run against each other. But back then, you ran against whoever was running and got the most votes. And then the first place winner would get president and the second place vice president. So they didn't even choose who would get to be in their cabinet. So Jefferson ended up winning the tiebreak, and Burr became his vice president. So although they were in the same political party, they did not get along. And Burr didn't get along with Alexander Hamilton at all. He ended up being in a duel with Alexander Hamilton and killing him, but that's for another day. Some of Jefferson's beliefs that he won his election on and started to work on right away was that the government should have simple customs and that a president should be someone of the common people. So instead of taking a horse carriage ride to his inauguration, he actually walked, shook hands with the people, and really related with them on that. He also believed that he needed to limit the federal government's power. As a Republican, he thought that a strong central government was not the best plan for the country, so he felt by limiting the power of the government through shrinking its size, its military size, eliminating some of its control, that the country would be better off. Part of this is the belief of laissez-faire economics, and this is that the government should not interfere with the economy. So the government shouldn't control some of the taxes, it shouldn't control how businesses are ran, but that the economy will take care of itself. In order to go along with laissez-faire economics, he shrunk the government size and military size and the funding going to certain departments and to the military in order to cut down on cost. He also eliminated federal taxes, which means that most of the government's money was made on the import tax. So he felt like Washington's decision to tax both federal and state was not a good idea because it placed too much control into the federal government's hands. One of the first major events in Jefferson's presidency came in the court case Marbury versus Madison. Now, the actual events that occurred in the court case aren't important, but the result of the case is what we remember today. So when Adams, the second president, was president, he felt like his power may be exiting as the popularity of Republicans was rising. So he appointed some Federalist judges. And Jefferson felt that this was done unjustly, and so he actually ordered one of his cabinet members, Madison, to fire a judge named Marbury. Marbury sued Madison and claimed that Congress gave the court the right to review judicial cases, so that Congress said that the court could make the decision, not Madison. So what the judge did decide is that Marbury's claim was unconstitutional because the court's powers came from the Constitution, not Congress. So he was saying that Congress gave the court this power, but Congress isn't supposed to give any power to the court due to checks and balances, right? So the judge ruled it unconstitutional. So the result of this that Marbury's claim was unconstitutional isn't necessarily what's important, but the precedent set that the authority of the Supreme Court to strike down unconstitutional laws was set, and that's what we call judicial review. So basically, this is the main strength of the Supreme Court, that they can look at a law that Congress makes and limit the power of Congress by saying this interferes with the Constitution. So the judicial department has the right to say what the law means through interpreting it, and has the right to say whether it's constitutional or unconstitutional. So judicial review is really important to remember, and that came as a result of Marbury versus Madison. One of the other big accomplishments of Jefferson's presidency is the Louisiana Purchase, but this didn't come without controversy. The Louisiana Purchase was a land deal between the United States and France in which the U.S. acquired or gained land from the Mississippi River westward. It was purchased for $15 million and is considered one of the largest land deals in history. This land deal gave the United States access to the port of New Orleans, which is really important for trade and security, and also access to the Mississippi River. Although this doubled the size of our territory and gave us so many more resources and ways to explore and access water routes, there was some controversy because of a conflict between Jefferson's beliefs and his actions. So as a Republican, Jefferson believed in following the Constitution as it was written, so a strict interpretation of the Constitution. The reason that he followed this is because in the Constitution it states anything that's not explicitly stated as a power of the federal government is left to the states. Well, it doesn't explicitly state in the Constitution that the president has the power to purchase land. It does not say that in the Constitution. So technically, under Jefferson's political beliefs, that would mean it's up to the states. But he had to give in a little bit because of how important this purchase was. It was going to keep us from the threat of France being right up next to us under the control of Napoleon Bonaparte, who was a ruthless leader of this time. So although Jefferson's political beliefs conflicted with his decision, it was an overall accepted and liked decision by the people. So here's a picture of the Louisiana Purchase. The Mississippi River is this blue line here. It lines up against Illinois, Wisconsin, and this little section up here of where Minnesota is. So we already owned majority of this land. And then this brown section here is going to be what we've gained. And then we end up accessing the rest of this through the concept of manifest destiny as a motivation to fight some wars in order to gain that land. So the big question is, what is in this land? What can we get to? This had never been explored territory before. So Jefferson is going to hire some explorers to come back with information on what exactly did Jefferson purchase. So this need to explore led to the hiring of Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark were two men that started the Corps of Discovery, and the purpose of this group was to explore the Northwest Territory and find a transcontinental route to the west, so basically a way to get to the west, and to secure natural resources. So let's think about some reasons that we might want natural resources. How can more natural resources benefit our country? And how can a transcontinental route also benefit our country? They came back a few years later with information on different native people that were in that territory, plants, animals, a map of how to get there again, and basically great information on how to use this new purchase to our advantage. This purchase led to the concept of manifest destiny, which is what many people argue to be the United States' God-given right to control land from ocean to ocean. And basically what this was is it was an excuse to conquer other people's land because we felt like we were owed that whole massive land, what is now currently the continental United States. So manifest destiny is going to come up in the future of this unit, but this is where we really get our interest piqued once Lewis and Clark reach the Pacific Ocean, and we really want the rest of what's out there. Although Jefferson was praised for his purchase of land, he left his presidency on a pretty difficult note. The rest of the world was in turmoil in Europe due to the Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon Bonaparte was the leader of France at this time, and he was trying to conquer all the land that France had been taken away from France and beyond. This was part of the reason we made the Louisiana Purchase, so that we wouldn't have French on our territory and have a threat of security. It was really difficult for us to maintain the neutrality that Washington had established as our country's precedent. England and France made it very difficult to stay neutral due to the fact that some of our sailors were supposedly smuggling war materials, so not remaining neutral at all. So they impressed these soldiers, or basically forced them to work on their ships, and took them under capture. So Jefferson, trying to stay neutral by not engaging in a violent war, engaged in kind of a passive-aggressive war, or one where you're not fighting at all and kind of being sneaky. So he instated the Embargo Act of 1807. Basically, what an embargo is when you do not allow trade. You stop all trade with certain countries. So he stopped trade with the countries that were interfering with our peace. So he was hoping that this decision would hurt these countries economically and then force them to stop impressing our soldiers. But actually what happened is the other countries just got angry, and it ended up hurting our economy. Also, the Federalists criticized Jefferson, and the Republicans did, because they felt that he was taking too much control over a situation, and that conflicted with his political beliefs. So now, whenever you hear that a politician is going back on things that they've said, or they've been kind of playing both sides of a topic, it's controversial, and Jefferson definitely had some instances of that. So it definitely gave the Federalist Party this boost for the next election, and especially in the creation of the Democratic Party. So Jefferson's presidency, although he's remembered as a really strong leader, the father of the Declaration of Independence, and a father of our country, it was very controversial due to his political beliefs conflicting with his actual actions, and also ending on a bad note with the Embargo Act of 1807.